All right, everyone. Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Black Girl Iowa podcast. This is your girl, Emily. And I know I always say, oh, I've got a really special episode, but this one is just so top tier. I know that we have been discussing a lot about Black excellence and how I feel like 2024 is such a special year for Black women in the state of Iowa because we have not one, but we have two incredible Black women that are representing our state in the Miss America and in the Miss USA competition. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest, and you guys might already be able to tell who I'm talking to, but we'll get to that here in a minute. So, she is a corporate trainer, community leader, and professional cheerleader. She graduated magna cum laude from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte with a Bachelor of Science degree in business and moved over 1,000 miles to launch her career right here in Des Moines. She currently works as a learning and development consultant at Principal Financial Group, which you all know is a Fortune 200 company. At Principal, she drives inclusion as co chair of the African American Black Employee Resource Group. She also holds leadership roles in several local organizations, including Big Brothers Big Sisters, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates, Iowa DECA, and the Young Professionals Connection. On Sunday, August 4th, she will represent Iowa at the Miss USA Pageant in Los Angeles, California, that will take place at the Peacock Theater. And we will all be watching and rooting for her on the CW. Ladies, gentlemen, and non binary friends, Miss Iowa USA McKenzie Kerry is here. Welcome, Queen. I am so excited that we got this scheduled on the books, and I am talking to you right now.
Oh my goodness, Emily. First of all, that was my first time hearing that bio read out loud. But thank you so much. I'm like, oh
You
wow, I
are
guess I
welcome.
do.
It's
I do that.
fabulous. It is fabulous. Like as I was doing my research on you, and and first of all, I went through the list of delegates for this year, and we'll talk about that in a minute because what an amazing group of women that are going to be representing their states. But when I got to yours, I'm sitting here taking notes, and I'm realizing I'm just rewriting the bio. And I was like, listen, if perfection ain't broke, don't fix it. So let's just go ahead and write it, and then I'll add a few things at the end.
My goodness.
So they did a fantastic job. But I mean, and just like I said, I'm born and raised here. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I even knew who Cheryl Brown was and how she was the first Black contestant to represent in, one of these amazing pageants. So the fact that I found that out 2 years ago, and now 2 years later, we have two beautiful Black queens that will be representing the state of Iowa. I mean, that is amazing. Can you just, before we even get into how you got to Iowa, your pageant career, all of that, what does it mean to you to be a part of that piece of history within the state?
Well, it's such an incredible honor. Like you talked about, you're an Iowa native. I'm an Iowa transplant, and we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Hmm.
But one of the first things I noticed when I took my trip out here before I moved out here, not a lot of Black
Hmm.
faces. And to be able to
Yes.
represent this state when we know that there's a Black community here, it's just hard to get plugged in and you
Hmm.
don't see us all the time. And so to be able to be that
Hmm.
representation for little girls everywhere and just for the Black community is so special to me. And I just want to say
Hmm.
I'm so honored to be here. I appreciate you bringing me on to this episode. And I want to thank you for everything that you're doing to elevate Black voices in our community because I think that work is so important.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Like I've kind of discussed it on this podcast that, I I felt really compelled to share Black voices because I felt so many times in my upbringing that my voice wasn't elevated. And I'm just happy that all it really took was a $40 camera, my MacBook, and a $25 microphone. So I'm very, very blessed and happy with that. But you mentioned that you are a transplant here from Iowa to Iowa. So let's go ahead. I always like to ask, especially people, why Iowa? What, with you graduating with your bachelor's, being fresh out of college, you can go anywhere. And you're like, I'm going to Iowa. Talk to me about that decision process and really what brought you here to the state.
Oh, I'd love to. So, like you mentioned in the bio, I graduated from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and
Hmm.
I knew that I wanted to go into business. And I thought to
Hmm.
myself, okay, I'm doing way too much tweaking to my resume and my cover letter. So let me narrow in on one specific industry. And if you know
Hmm.
anything about Charlotte, North Carolina, you know that we're a huge financial services hub. And so I said, okay, I
Hmm.
don't have much of a background in finance or financial services, but in order to narrow the search, I'm going to focus on financial services. And so I was applying for
Hmm.
leadership development programs, and I was also applying for rotational programs. And I happened to come across a posting for a leadership development program at Principal Financial Group. And they were actually
Hmm.
posting in Des Moines and Charlotte because Principal just acquired a piece of Wells Fargo's business, their institutional retirement and trust
Oh,
business, which made Charlotte
okay.
now, they brought on hundreds of employees, and it made Charlotte their second largest hub in the United States. And so I thought, here's another job posting. I'm going to throw in my hat. I have no idea what will happen. And I was in the process of going through multiple job interview processes at the same time. Before I knew it, I
Hmm.
had reached the end of the process. And I'll take a couple steps back. And so when I learned about Principal, I thought, I have no idea what this company is. I know how difficult it is to get through a job interview process or even to get selected at the start. And so I said, who can I get connected to? Where's my in this company? And so I reached out to a recruiter that I happened to find on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. It was a Black woman. She was also on the East Coast.
Hmm.
And what really struck me is the fact that with just a cold call message on LinkedIn, she was willing to spend an hour of her workday with me, telling
Wow.
me
Hmm.
all about Principal. And in corporate America, an hour is extremely valuable, especially for
It
someone
is.
who you don't know at all. And she told me about
Right, right.
Principal, and she shared with me the good things about Principal, but also opportunities of improvement for Principal too.
Hmm.
And so she got me connected. I got to the final round of the interview, and it was the same thing. Very kind people who were willing to tell me the great things about Principal, but also be totally honest and transparent about where Principal still has room to grow. And so I got
Hmm.
my job offer, and I am a very conservative decision maker. I don't like change. I don't
Okay.
like risk. But I thought to
Yep.
myself, I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to college
Hmm.
30 minutes away from my home. And I didn't
Hmm.
want to be one of those people who was in Charlotte their entire life. And so I thought,
Right.
Mackenzie, why don't you, for the first time, it felt like
Yeah.
in your life, do the unexpected thing and move out to Des
Hmm.
Moines, Iowa. And so that's what brought me here. It was a role that I was super interested and passionate about with Principal Financial
Hmm.
Group. And I didn't know what to expect. I think I visited Des Moines for the first time to pick out my apartment. And then the next time I visited, it was to move
Hmm.
here. And so, no, I
Okay.
wasn't familiar with Des Moines, didn't know much about Iowa.
Hmm.
Um, but I
Hmm.
think everything happens for a reason. And I'm so thankful that it happened the way it
Yep.
did.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because one of my really good friends that I've known like since the sixth grade, she lives in Charlotte, and kind of the same thing. She was just like, I born and raised in Iowa, went to Iowa State. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna stay. And I think what a lot of people kind of don't really realize a lot of the times is that home is always home. You can always go home. But it's really those experiences that you have when you're away from home that I really feel like kind of really develop you and make you really understand that you can definitely like stand on your own 2 feet. You know, I lived away, I was gone for almost 10 years and I ended up coming back because I was homesick. I truly missed my mom and I was like, I need to come back. But I think that for you, it is incredible that not only did you say, I'm going to move here, but it really seems like you hit the ground running with building a life here for yourself, so much so that you got into pageantry. Now, my next question is, have you always been in the pageant circuit, or was this, one of those, you know what, I'm going to try it and see how this all works? Kind of tell us a little bit about your journey into pageantry.
I know every time I talk about pageantry, people are like, "Oh, so like, were you one of those toddlers and tiara girls with the big puffy skirts and the makeup when they're like 3 years old?" And I'm like, "No, my mom knew better
Right, in the full
than that."
updos, yeah.
The big updo. So what was it? Honey Boo Boo
Yeah.
and all of that. No, that was not me.
Yes.
um,
Okay,
no,
okay, that's whew, all right.
my parents. So my dad is a retired 30-year pastor. And so,
Okay.
I'll tell you a little bit about how I learned about pageantry. We were on a family
Mhm,
vacation to the Bahamas, and we were walking through one
mhm,
of the hotels, Bahamas, the Atlantis Resort, lots and lots of buildings. We were walking through one of the buildings, and we just saw like an array of beautiful women. Everybody well dressed,
mhm.
everybody beautiful and put together. And what we found out later that it was the Miss Teen USA pageant. And this was back, I want
Oh,
to
okay.
say, somewhere around 2009 when it was happening in the Bahamas.
Mhm,
And we thought, well, obviously, this is a big deal. Why don't we grab tickets to one of the preliminary shows? And
mhm.
ever since that, I was hooked. You talked about,
Okay.
was I a toddlers and tiara girl? No, I will say my dad was not for it initially because
Yep.
talk about a
I was gonna
Southern
say
Baptist
being a
preacher.
PK kid, I couldn't
Yes,
imagine.
a Southern Baptist preacher. And this was during a time in the Miss Teen USA system where they still did a swimsuit competition. So this is girls
Mm,
14 through 19 in bikinis on stage, which is one of those
yeah.
things that we look back on and we're like,
Little
not sure how
cringe,
that
but we
happened.
get it. It was the time.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
both the Miss America and the Miss USA system are such big deals, especially for someone like me who grew up in the dance world. And so after I had that initial exposure, I continued to watch the Miss USA pageant
Mhm,
specifically every single year because it was broadcast on live
mhm.
TV. And, I wanted to do it, but again, parents not too comfortable in it. And pageantry is one of those activities that can be very exclusive and you're just not
Yes.
quite sure how to begin if you don't have the connections and you don't
Mhm,
have the support system. Because competing in pageantry is an incredible experience, but once you get into the world of pageantry and you start to see how much work goes into competing at the state and the national level, it can be very intimidating. And so that's how it was for me. Um,
mhm.
but I knew it was a bucket list item for me, and this was back when the Miss USA system still had an age limit. I want to say it was 28, and so I thought, okay, Mackenzie, you're getting up there. When are you going to
Mhm,
make this dream of yours happen? And so when I made the decision, I accepted that job offer with principal. I said, what can I do? Because I know I want to build community. Exactly what you said. I said, this is my opportunity to really establish a life for
mhm.
myself outside of my dad, who was a 30-year pastor and knew so many people in the community, and outside of my mom,
Right.
who was also well connected and had her own um, influence on me. And so it was
Mhm,
probably one step after the other. Never competed in pageants before. After my job offer, probably within a couple of
mhm.
weeks, I said, I'm going to put my name in the hat for Miss Iowa USA. It was a full year in advance because I said,
Wow.
I know enough about pageantry to know that it's going to help me establish the kind of lifestyle and make the connections that I want to make between
Mhm.
preparing for the fitness competition and getting
Right.
out in the community and exercising,
Mhm,
getting connected to a gym, um, serving my community and getting involved in organizations. And then even the pageant
mhm.
itself and being able to meet other people and make friends. I thought this is such a
Right.
great and kind of all-encompassing opportunity of lots of things that I want to do to establish myself in a new city.
Wow. So let me get this straight. So Miss Capital City, Iowa. Was was that like your very first pageant?
So the way it works in the Miss USA system, we don't have a lot of local
Uh-huh.
titles. And so I competed
Right.
for the first
Uh-huh.
time in 2022. And when you have a
Okay.
local title, for the most part, in this USA system, especially here in Iowa, having a local title is signing up on the website, submitting your registration, and then you order a
Okay.
sash. And so it wasn't actually a
Oh,
pageant. But the first year I competed in
okay.
2022, which was Miss Iowa USA,
Uh-huh.
yes, that was my first pageant.
Okay, so Miss Iowa USA 2022 is your first time. Okay, got it. So this was your so on your third time, it was we are, first runner up of the girl, McKenzie Kerry, you are Miss Iowa USA.
Yes. And it was an incredible trajectory.
That is
So
wild and that is amazing.
this
Wow.
past year, so the year that I won,
Mhm.
obviously. But I competed
Yeah.
in 2023. I was first runner up, which is second place in the world of
Okay.
pageantry. And then when I
Yeah.
competed in 2022, I was second runner up, so third place. So it was literally third place, second place,
Wow.
and then this year it worked out.
Wow. And I mean, kudos to you also for sticking with it and not getting discouraged. But I also think, something needs to be said about goals, right? And how if there is something that you really want to do, put it on the list and just do whatever it takes to get there. I think that I really love that for you with you being at the age you are and being young. I feel like I know in my life, I turned 38 back in March, and I've really been thinking about all those things I've wanted to do leading up to this point that it's like, man, I just should have did them. Now it's like, oh, of course I can do them, but kudos to you for saying, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to establish my life. I'm going to get ready for the competition and I'm going to give it my all every single time. Which I think is absolutely incredible. So, um, you know, you were crowned, you have the title. How are you engaging the community with this title?
So I like to tell people that in my mind, there are two different main responsibilities of a title holder. The first is to serve her community, and then the second is to represent her community well on the national stage. And so normally there you're crowned in your state pageant, and then you have, maybe 6 to 8 months to prepare for your national pageant, and you're able to kind of interweave both of those responsibilities in that time
Hmm.
frame. This was an off year for the Miss USA
Hmm.
system, meaning my state pageant was back at the end of June, and the national pageant is, like you mentioned, on August 4th. And so we've
Hmm.
condensed what would have been, potentially 8 months, 10 months of planning down to 1 month. And so
Oh,
everyone
wow.
asks, what are you doing in the community? The truth is, I'm trying to keep my job
Yeah.
and prepare for the national pageant. And so
Right.
the last month for me has looked like doing everything that I can to, again, represent Iowa the best I can, be the best representative that I can on the national stage. And so that's been
Hmm.
everything from, again, staying fit and making sure that I'm taking care of my physical and mental health, doing all of the fun, glitzy glam things of pageantry that a lot of
Hmm.
people see on the outside, which are awesome.
Hmm.
Gotten to do a couple of photo shoots, and then also, pageant wardrobe. Wardrobe was such a big deal,
Yes.
and so things like choosing my national gown, and some of my
Hmm.
wardrobe during Miss USA. That's
Hmm.
taken a lot of my time in the last couple of weeks, and then really spending a lot of
Hmm.
time reflecting on my journey, on my story, and what do I want to bring to the
Hmm.
judges when I have that personal interview. So that's what my time
Right.
in the last month has looked like, trying to keep my head on straight,
Right.
especially because the job that I have at Principal, after I transition out of that rotational program, I'm in a new position. And we have a
Okay.
crazy, crazy busy world going on this summer.
Yep.
But you
Hmm.
asked the question, what am I passionate about and what my platforms are? So unlike other systems, we don't have a specific platform in the Miss USA system, but the things that I care deeply about all revolve around leadership development and youth empowerment. And I think it all connects to kind of my story growing up. I was an incredibly shy child, like carried a book around with me everywhere because I liked reading, but also because I just didn't like talking to people. And maybe part of it was because of my dad and how extroverted he was. He was the type of person who was always like, hey, like, McKenzie, come meet my preacher friends and come talk to this person when I'm the one who wants to like hide in the corner. And
Yes.
so
As someone that was born to extroverted parents, I get that. And my
you know what it
parents are
feels like.
teachers. So I know what it feels like. But no, please continue.
Yes. One of my most memorable times of childhood after the Sunday service, when you're in the car, the hot car, it's a sunny day, and you're ready to go home, and your parents are still talking to people for like an hour after church has ended.
Yes,
And
yes,
so, yes,
yes.
you feel me, you know the struggle. But
Absolutely.
exactly. And so, Um, when I got to high school, though, it was actually I joined the cheer team. It was kind of the next step for me after I ended dance. I danced ballet for about 10 years. And I did cheer for
Wow.
2
Okay.
years, and I got cut from the team. And that was devastating as a high schooler because high schoolers in sports, they kind of put all their identity into that sport. And that's exactly what I did. And so when I got cut, I decided to join this business organization that was really popular at my high school called DECA. And it was really just someplace to channel my competitive energy and to kind of fill up my time. And that ended up being a huge passion of mine to the point where I joined as a sophomore. And by the time I was a senior, I had the chance to lead the organization as president, the largest organization at my high school, 300 plus members. But the essence of DECA, I tell people, so it's all based around something called role play competitions. And so if you imagine you go into a room, they give you a business scenario. You're the manager of Burger King and a McDonald's moves in across the street. Like, what are you going to do to compete?
Yeah.
And you take 10 minutes to prepare your solution, and then you go and present with the judge for 10 minutes. And I tell people that what causes a person to be successful in DECA is really faking it. Because you, as a high school student, do not have all of the business knowledge and know-how. What you're really doing in those 10-minute role play presentations is, for lack of better terms, just kind of BSing it. And you're really selling more of the way you present and your body language and your confidence. And so it was the perfect opportunity for a person like me to get into, because almost like acting, it allowed me to like step into a new persona and learn all of the nonverbal gestures and cues and things to appear as confident, even if I didn't always feel that on the inside. And so DECA, super influential and informative in my journey, moved on, was super involved in student organizations, and then eventually graduated and then stayed in the business world in the same, and I think DECA had a big influence on that too. But when I think about who like 14-year-old McKenzie was, again, just very introverted and not quite sure how to present herself to the world, and also not totally aware of the way that how you present yourself matters so much. And I think about the interviews that I've done in the course of my professional life, and even in college. It's your body language and your confidence that is like that gets you majority of the way. And then the things that you say, that's kind of important. But like, if you can walk into a room and you can be polished and professional, and professional is a tricky word, but if you're able to express your ideas well, and those fundamentals, a lot of things that just aren't taught in schools, that is going to get you so far. It's going to get you in the door. It's going to get you connected to the right people who can help develop you into the full package. And so that's a long way of saying that's what I care about. And when I think about the organizations that I'm involved in, Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, Iowa Jobs for America's Graduates, and then I also sit on the board for Iowa DECA. They are all connected with the same mission, which is working with youth and really helping them build those confidence skills, giving them someone to look up to and someone to aspire to, and helping introduce them to those basic professional fundamental skills that can help get them to the next level.
Yeah, and I think especially when you are talking about professionalism and how it is such a tricky word, I really think that having the right people to kind of show you and guide you and what all of those things mean. And I really love what you said about really showing up for an interview. I how you were describing 14-year-old McKenzie is how 38-year-old Emili is at home. I'm an introvert. I'm more than likely walking around with the book, or I'm listening to a podcast, or like I like to be in my bubble, but I also understand that when I leave my bubble, when I leave my apartment, I can't necessarily be that way, but I don't have to go to such an extreme where I'm not being my authentic self. And I really love that there are young people that are wanting to share what they have learned to this younger generation. A thing that I'm really passionate about is I'm passionate about students understanding that higher education is something that they can absolutely attain, that the money is there, but at the same time, understanding what it is that you need to be doing in middle school and high school to make college a reality, and a lot of the things that you talked about, those are those skills that you could absolutely be developing like you did in high school. And just again, kudos to you again for not wanting to gatekeep that information, but wanting to share it with others, which I really think is something positive. And I really think that those are the pieces that speak the loudest, especially when we look at the Black community here in Des Moines. Because I'm sure, as you now know, now that you are an Iowan, that the Black community here, specifically in Des Moines, is small, but it is very vocal and it is very present. So I think that's amazing. And so I want to go ahead and transition here to asking about Sunday, August 4th. I mean, it's coming. I cannot believe that we are almost through the month of July, even. I feel like just yesterday it was June 1st, and now it is, we're almost to August. So tell me a little bit about what you are most looking forward to as you head to Los Angeles and you represent Iowa in the Miss USA competition.
Oh my goodness. How much time do we have? You must know by now I'm long-winded. I could talk about
All the
this
time
for
you want,
forever.
sis. Please tell us.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So it's going to be a jam-packed week. So the pageant's happening on August 4th,
Mhm,
but there are about 6 days of activities and competitions leading up to them.
mhm.
And we're doing everything
Okay.
from having a high tea ball. We're visiting the Griffith Observatory. We're doing a pajama party. We have a national
Wow.
costume show and then a preliminary
Oh,
show
yes.
and a final show. And
Okay.
then that's all in addition to, so there's a Miss Teen USA competition that's happening at the same time. And so I have a teen queen.
Mhm,
Her name is Grace Smithy. She's an awesome young woman, and she'll be competing in the same 2 pageants
mhm.
happening
Yeah,
at
shout
different
out to
times
her.
to Grace. So it's going to be a whirlwind of activities.
Yeah.
Goodness, what am I looking to
Mhm,
forward to most? I think
mhm.
it goes back, I think many things, but I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, which is being able to represent Iowa on a national stage. Because we have, if you've seen the women who are competing this year, we have some incredible women, some very competitive
Yes.
women. And Iowa has flown under the radar. I think we've had some extremely strong contestants in the past. But I
Mhm,
think when you think about
mhm.
Iowa's reputation at a pageant, at Miss USA, it's probably the same reputation that Iowa has in the context of the country, which is we're often overlooked and we're
Right.
not recognized for the
Yes.
value that we bring
Yes.
to a competition, to the country, whatever it is. And so I'm excited
Mhm,
to connect with all of the ladies, to participate in the activities, but I'm really excited to represent Iowa and to be able to share, whether that's to other women who are unfamiliar with the Midwest or to the judges during my interview panel, or even through my state costume, in all elements of the competition, to really talk about Iowa and to share what makes our state special.
Yes, yes. And I mean, my heart is just so full that you are going to be there representing us. And, I also think as I look through all of the contestants, um, what I noticed is that this is a time where I feel like the contestants are truly representative of what America looks like right now. And I really think that you're right. Iowa is absolutely a flyover state, but so is South Dakota, so is Nebraska, so is Minnesota. And if you look at those contestants, they really are representative of the people that are there. Like I saw that Miss Minnesota is the first Somali delegate, to be representing her state. And that actually makes sense because there is a large Somali population in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You know what I mean? And so just to see the representation in this group of young women, and when I say representation, I mean by women of color, I mean by women in different professions with different educational backgrounds, with just different causes and things that they are just so engaged with and loving. Because I read almost all of y'all's bios for like a good like hour today. I'm just like reading and skimming through and seeing where everyone is from and where their families are from. And I'm just like, this is an incredible group of women. And I'm very excited to see all of you compete and show your best. But sis, I am rooting for you. So I want you to bring us that title and definitely just be that beacon of hope, be that light for us. And regardless of what happens, you are our queen. And we are so excited and I'm incredibly proud of you. So what I am gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the show. But I want to make sure, though, that based on this podcast, people know where to find you, McKenzie. So I'm going to roll out the red carpet to you, let people know where they can find you on social, how we can support you, and also when and where we can watch you compete.
Absolutely. So you can find me in 2 different places on Instagram at McKenzie Ariana Kerry. That's McKenzie Arianakerry. That's my personal Instagram account. And then you can also find me at my title holder account.
Okay.
That's at Miss USA. You can also find both of those, me, my personal account, and the Miss Iowa USA accounts on Facebook by searching the same things.
Mhm.
And then as far as the
Okay.
national pageant, actually, I'll share a couple different things. So we have the National Costume Show that's happening on July 30th. We have a preliminary competition that's happening on August 3rd for the Miss contestants that's
Okay.
happening, and it's streaming on YouTube. But the main event is the final competition, the Miss USA competition, and it will be streaming on Sunday evening, August 4th on the CW channel.
Okay, wonderful. And I will have all of that information in the show, everyone. So we will all not be missing a beat and we will be watching and celebrating with you. So, everyone, that's going to wrap up today's show. Again, McKenzie, thank you so much for being here. So excited for this trip. And girl, get some rest because I feel like next week, like as soon as you get off the plane at LAX, you're there and you're going. So super excited for you. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this bonus episode of Black Girl Iowa. You guys all know where to find me at Black Girl Iowa on Instagram. Check out my blog where I will have a new post up. I'm getting back to blogging weekly, guys, so just bear with me. That's going to be www.blackgirliowa.com. New episode will be up on Monday, August August 5th, I will have the very special April Finley on, where she will be talking about her experience being a transplant, also from Alabama to Iowa. And you guys stick around because merch is finally coming. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone. Black Girl Iowa signing off. We'll see you guys on the next one.